freeze it. We got here. Okay, I'm going to call our meeting back to order. Okay, next on the agenda is the fire department. As everyone's well known, that on the 24th of January, the part-time position ran out, and there was a vote taken, and it was a tie vote. And we had a prospective candidate that had come in and applied, and I want to read the email that he sent to us just this last week. It says, "Dear Mayor, Council, and citizens, it is with sincere sympathy for the citizens and administrators of the City of Argo that I officially request that my application for fire chief be removed from consideration. I greatly appreciated the opportunity that has been given. However, I am no longer interested in the position. I want to take this opportunity to thank each of the citizens who have supported the idea of change and those who attended the special call council meeting to meet with myself and family. I firmly believe that the citizens of Argo deserve a full-time fire chief, and I wish the best for the city moving forward. If I can be of assistance to you in any way moving forward, please do not hesitate to call. Sympathetically, Heath Smith." So the applicant that we had gotten that came in and interviewed, he has withdrawn his application and his name for consideration. I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Barnett now, and he wants to read to us his finding on this. Would you?
Well, I mean, if there are questions, I'd rather answer questions. I have, I've brought law with me prepared to deal with the subject based upon the questions that are asked. So, if there are legal questions, I'm prepared to answer those, but I don't want to discuss legal issues that are not on the floor for discussion. Does that make sense? So, if you all have a legal question about the situation,
You said you had some paperwork that you could give us to.
I have yes, sir. What I have is a statute that I believe takes care of this situation. Now, again, it's very difficult giving legal advice in a vacuum. That's not the way legal advice works. Legal advice is given based upon fact situations. But given this situation and what has happened to date and all the circumstances, I think it squarely fits within a certain statute. Again, it requires interpretation, but this statute, in my legal opinion, it is the one that takes care of this situation that you should refer to when dealing with this particular situation. So I'm going to hand it out. You all can read it in your leisure time, read it tonight, or what have you. But this is the statute, among others. There's 10 others that are helpful in this situation. But this is the primary one that everyone should focus on when dealing with this situation. It does not, it varies only based upon the facts. When facts enter the situation that may be different, or the facts may change, that changes the application of the legal advice. So, the fact that, for instance, originally it was once said that maybe a prior mayor had dealt with this situation single-handedly without necessarily input from the city council. Well, looking into the situation, into minutes and prior motions and votes of the city council, that's not necessarily the case. In the records of the city, it's been determined that appointments made by the mayor have always been consented to by the city council, and that's the way it has historically been. That's my understanding, And so, given that situation, it still falls within the statute that I've handed each one of you. So, if you have questions based upon that situation, I'll be happy to answer those.
Yeah, I have a question. So this is talking about removal, but as I see it, no one has been removed. We've been asked to reclassify a full-time position to part-time, and that didn't pass. We don't have a part-time position available. So this statute, to me, doesn't cover that.
Well, legally, it does cover it, absolutely, without a doubt. Now, here's the situation that you're describing. I don't disagree that it's an issue. That what you're talking about is absolutely an issue. That now you're dealing with parliamentary procedure. It's outside of this statute. I'm just talking about the Alabama law as it applies to the situation. Now, you all had a vote. Again, I don't want to rehash history. We could literally be here all night. But here's based upon the question on the table is how does the situation currently stand given the 3 votes that have been taken? The first vote was to extend for 6 months part-time position, or extend or create part-time position. At the end of that 6 months, only because it was limiting from the first vote, the position went to a full-time position. I don't disagree with that. Now, there's been 2 subsequent votes, one trying to undo that, and another one attempting to fix that. Well, neither one passed, so the only affirmative vote successful in front of this city council was the first one. The other 2 failed. Now, just because something fails doesn't mean the opposite action happens. If something fails, a vote fails, it's as if it never happened. So, in my legal opinion, the city has a full-time position available. I have no problem saying that. But at the same time, I know what Councilman Aldridge is talking about. You're talking about you have a full-time position but a part-time chief.
That's correct.
Right. Well, that's correct because Chief Platts did not step down from the position as originally indicated. Now, you have a full-time position and a part-time chief. That's the big elephant in the room. How do you deal with that? Well, it does.
Let me interject a question there, because according to the minutes, he did.
Well, and I know this is all semantics here, but yes, I know the night you're talking about. That night, and don't take this wrong, I'm not arguing, I'm just telling you my legal interpretation of what's happened. I agree that night, he said, unless you do this, consider my resignation. Well, that's sort of what happened. It was extended for 6 months, so he did resign. So, I agree with what you're saying, that is an issue, that's a problem, and to be honest with you, I wish you had never said it, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But the city has continued to pay the part-time chief for working, and he's still working for you. As a city council, you have the authority right this minute to change that situation if you see fit as a city council. Right this very second, you can change it all. So now you have before you a full-time fire chief position, in my legal opinion, that exists. But you also have a part-time fire chief that's currently working for you. That is not a perfect situation, but that is currently what you have. And I'm not saying he is working here illegally. I'm not saying that, because that's not the case. The city council has continued to pay a part-time fire chief in a full-time position. It's not pretty, but that's what you got.
Can we legally do that since there's no part-time position available?
You're doing it. You've been doing it.
I mean, are we breaking the law by doing that?
No.
Now, what she's asking is, if we make she's wanting to say, if we change that tonight, if we do release him, are we within our legal rights?
The city council would.
The council would by majority have to do it.
Yeah, I believe that the city council, the mayor could do it tomorrow. The mayor could do it right this minute. But then that, based upon the statute that I just handed out, that's subject to review by the city council.
Well, as y'all know, I've been studying it for months. And I've come to the thing that we've got 3 options so that we can end this thing. And end it on an up note. And number 1 option is chief moves to the grant position. And when we were hiring the new man, the chief, he was going to hire the chief to go to that grant position that the federal government's making. And the mayor signed off on it and agreed to it.
No, I did not sign off on that. I signed off to, I told him that I would not interfere. I would not interfere with the new chief in his position if he chose. I have not interfered with Chief Platt's, his hiring, and Chief Downing. They're hired to run that department. I have no business going back there telling you.
That's what I'm saying, but let me go to the rest of it. Let me finish, and then you can tell what you want to tell, so we won't be mad and screaming. She agreed to let the new chief hire, I probably said wrong, to hire Mike Platts to be that guy if he saw fit. And the whole thing has been, now it's, at one time, it was, and I'm not saying this to inflame anybody, but we're witnesses here that she said that she didn't know she could get along with Mike. And she has the right to fire him. She had the right to fire him then. But now it's 15 months later, and there's a just cause thing in here now that for him to fire. And I'm not saying that him being part-time and we've got a full-time position is not just cause, but I'm saying if it's not about Mike, he can go to that part-time, go to the grant position without costing us any money, and the new chief can come in. The chief that, when we were having the meeting, Scott and I and the new chief and the old chief and Betty was in another room, and Scott was being the liaison, going back and forth.
No, Scott came into after the meeting was finished.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. After the meeting was finished, he came into my office and said that he thought that y'all had been able to work something out.
Well,
He did not come back and
yes, he
forth.
did, because he brought back the paper you had signed. And then he went back in there.
No, he did not come back.
It don't matter.
One time.
The agreement was made. The agreement was made, and everything was water over the dam then. And the agreement can still be made if she hires, and there's a way we can do this, to give Mike the job as the fire chief. She don't have a problem with Mike, so, give him the grant job and then hire a chief. The chief that we were hiring would have served us less favorably than Mike would full-time, because he was not a paramedic and he lived 40 some odd miles away. When he's off duty, he can't make runs for us. Our chief is always, whether he's on duty or not, he's answering calls. If we're going to hire a new chief, let's improve ourselves. And I agreed to hire the vote on this deal, whether the other two did, but I talked to the other two about it. I agreed. We had concerns about we were paying the new chief too much and then it was going to cost too much, but I agreed we would pay the new chief the salary that the mayor had told him that we would give him, and furnish him his truck and his benefits, and I agreed to that, although we didn't all agree to it, but I was the vote that would make it a deal to where we could keep Mike Platts, which nobody thinks there's anything wrong with keeping Mike, and then we'd have a new chief and we'd have a better fire department. And we can still do that. We can hire Mike for the grant job. The federal government pays that money, and he's still an active police fireman, helping us with calls and with paramedic calls and then help with the transition for the new chief to come in, and we'll have a better fire department instead of worrying about a part-time chief. It wasn't a part-time chief, wasn't the problem to start with. The problem was friction, and I got friction too. Betty, and we can all beat around the bush and stuff, but Betty told us she didn't know she could work with the chief. It's that simple. And we mistakenly now, I see We agreed to hire him on an interim basis. And the state, I've been through, had them printed out. I don't like reading it. I'm on page with you, man. I like a book in my hand. I had it on the computer, but I got it printed out. But why not improve the fire department while we're at it? We can hire him, and we can hire a new fire chief, and the two of them together can cover us a whole lot better than either one of them can, and cost us no more than what we're going to be spending anyway. You know, unless there's some kind of problem, you know, that we can't work with the new chief, with Mike, and it gets rid of the controversy. We've got it settled, and then you can interview a new chief, and you can hire him, and we've not got the controversy anymore. Mike's just an employee of the, and I've told him he better walk the straight and narrow. After I've stuck my neck out as long and far as I have, if there's any kind of problem with him, out of him, or anything, and the new chief has a problem with him, I'll not back him up anymore. I mean, I've gone to bat, and I've got more people mad at me in this town than I love, and people I love that are against me, because I'm trying to do what I think I see is right. We got another option. The mayor fires the chief. I mean, that's her right. She can do it. But he's got a right to a hearing after this. And I wish that had happened a year and a half ago. He would have been on with his life, and at that time there wouldn't have been a controversy. But we agreed, and I'll tell you the reason I voted for it was because I thought it would blow over. You know, I thought they'd get along, they'd figure out they'd get along, they'd forgive and forget. But it ain't just Betty. He's got some hard feelings, and but you got to get past it. And it's not funny, Betty.
I'm not laughing.
Well, quit your silly screaming. But she's got the right to fire him. She can fire him tonight, and we'll have a hearing in the next council meeting if he wants it. And if he don't want it, he don't have to have it.
What's your third option?
All right, the third is the chief comes back full time.
Chief Platts, could you take that position full time?
That's his choice. He can.
In 3 years and 4 months, I'm retiring. I cannot take the full-time position at the current rate of pay. It's a simple math issue.
Okay, so that's off the board then.
I would love to do that. That would be my a really blessing in my eyes to do that. However, I cannot. Regardless, I'm retired 3 years and 4 months. That's when I have my time to do so, and that's what I plan on doing. At this point in time, my goal is to keep my retirement pension flowing the way I need it to flow, so I can do that in 3 years and 4 months. Now, I'm going to say a little more just other than answer that simple question. I've already talked to the mayor on multiple occasions and several other people. And I would like to take the position of the volunteer recruitment and retention coordinator position. It's kind of like what Corky was saying. I've been talking to Corky as well. I feel like it would be a good situation. I know this city backwards and forwards. I know most of the people here have been to most people's houses at some point or not, whether before you lived in it or not, the people before you called. I know the situation. A new chief would come in, I'd fully support him. Just like me and Heath, the chief we looked at hiring, we talked in great depth. And there's if I took that position, there's no undermining a new chief. He's the new chief. It's his show. But if I can add in there things that we've done in the past and give him help to make the department go forward, there's some different things we've had to do for different reasons through the years that the new chief would not know. I could bring that to the table. My goal is to make the fire department the best fire department it can be. That's what I've done for the past 28 years I've been here.
The reason I used the first one as option one is because it's the one I prefer, and I think it's the one that's best for our town. it does leave him in the job. And I talked to our attorney this afternoon, and I think Betty likes the guy that's withdrawn his name. Once we get the controversy away from it, Scott thought it was a good idea too, maybe, or he kind of came up with a lot of that too.
But didn't we have that opportunity to do that 2 weeks ago?
We did, but I haven't talked to him since. Just like you, I haven't talked to him at all.
Since you have finished yours, I'd like to respond.
Well, I'm not through. I'm not through. Just give me a second. If we take the controversy out of it, if Mike's an employee now, he's just an employee like all the rest of the fire department firemen. The new chief comes in. This chief, this guy that has, Heath Smith, that has withdrawn his application, we could write him a letter and tell him we've settled the thing and tell him the controversy is over and as best we can we'll. And I told him, the last thing I told him at that meeting was I was going to support him and I was going to vote for the deal, and Betty had signed for the deal we're talking about.
No, I did not sign for it.
Scott, did you?
I sent him, I gave him
That's what I'm
something
saying
to tell
you
him
did.
that I would not stand in the way of the decisions of an incoming chief, that I would not hinder his decisions back there.
That's
And I
exactly
have
what I'm
not
talking
hindered
about, and it was in
Chief
regard to
Platt's
Chief
decision.
Platt's position. Is that right, Scott?
Yes, sir, it's exactly what the mayor just said is the,
That he would have the right to
To hire and fire whoever he chose back there, that it would not be my business.
Mike was the subject of the conversation, and we all know that. You can sugarcoat it or what, but that was that's what we were here for 4 hours that morning for.
Okay, can someone else have a chance
No,
to
let
speak?
me finish. All I'm gonna say is if we can do that, if Betty keeps saying all along that she got no problem with Mike, this is the perfect solution for it. If she's got no problem with Mike, the only reason it wouldn't be the perfect solution is because she got a problem with Mike. So I'm through now.
Okay, I would like to respond to what you said about the day that we had the meet and greet at the applicant's request. His request to this city was, he sent to Casey an email asking if we each council person would meet with him and talk to him on a one-on-one basis. I stepped out of my office and I gave the office to any council members that wanted to come. I was not involved in the question and answers or the meet and greet at all. I stayed in the clerk's office. Councilperson Brown came that morning to interview him, and they went to my office. I did not go in that office. I stayed out of that office. Councilperson Brown went in there and did the interview for a 15-minute interview.
I don't look at, I was asked to come, we were asked to come as a meet and greet. I didn't feel like I was here to interview anybody. I just wanted to meet the person and get to know him. But as far as interviewing him for a job, I did not do that.
Well, anyway, she came for the meet and greet, and that was what was sent out, that it was going to be a meet and greet of the new applicant. And then the attorney shows up, councilperson, and he gets a phone call from Councilman Massey. He tells me that Councilman Massey would like to speak to him, and then Councilman Massey shows up, and I'm going to let Councilman Brown go ahead and tell you what happened after that.
Well, what I witnessed was, as I was leaving, in this room was the attorney and Councilman Massey and Chief Platts and the candidate for that position. And let me just say that it was my understanding when we first met and interviewed the attorney's office that we would have one point of contact in order to stay on budget with attorney's fees, and that point of contact would be the mayor. So Councilman Massey took it upon himself to call the attorney and have the attorney here. So when I left, they were all here at this table. And so I called the mayor or texted her 45 minutes later and said, who's that, is anybody else showed up to talk to him? And she said, no, they're still in there. 2.5 hours they were in here. And I'm fuming because I'm thinking, now we're paying the attorney for a 2.5 hour meeting in here and what I thought was a meet and greet. That really ticked me off to so many levels. And then I found out that the mayor knew nothing about this 2.5-hour meeting was going to take place. She wasn't invited to come to that. And that there was a deal made that with the new applicant, that if he would agree to keep Chief Platt's own at whatever position, then Councilman Massey would support him. That's either blackmail in my eyes, or either that's buying somebody's vote.
Let me answer that now. The email came out that if we wanted the attorney to be here, that he would be here. He was aware of that. And there was no time limit set on how long we could be in here. It said they would be here all day long to answer questions, to do this. I took my time and worked my way through it. I'm sorry. The new chief that we greeted, he didn't have a bit of problem with Mike Platts coming in there, and I didn't promise anybody anything. I said I would support it, and if they support it, if you don't support it, vote against it. I mean, I didn't make a law. I made a tentative agreement, and with our attorney there present to help guide us through it, and he did go in there to check with Betty on a couple of occasions.
Scott, did you come in my office other than after the meeting was over? After the meeting was over is when he came in.
No, he had to, because he
He
brought
did
that
not.
signed paper back with him, said that you had.
No, he did, that paper was signed the morning of, before y'all ever got here.
My point is that what I feel like we're doing is we're holding a full-time chief who's come in for an interview, we're holding them hostage in that we will support them and we will vote for their hirement if they agree to these conditions. And we don't have the authority to put any conditions on this man.
We did not. I said that was my position on it. I didn't say that was your position on it.
But you don't have the authority to do that.
I do. I have the authority to make my opinion and to tell what I'm.
Well, if you were going to do that, I felt like it should have been in an open meeting in front of the public and not behind closed doors.
That's why I didn't promise anything. I said if it all goes through. And if I recall, the new chief wanted time to decide to talk back and forth with Mike to have the thing.
Well, Chief Platts is the one that suggested that he come in and them kind of talk and get to know each other, and they had no problems with each other.
That's right. They didn't have any. But the new chief, the prospective chief, he asked, and Scott can verify this, that he had a little time to talk back and forth with Mike to see if they could get along, because he didn't want to commit to hiring Mike without time to talk to Mike and stuff. And Scott came back from this meeting. I'm telling you, there was more than one time, because he came back and said that you had signed off on that, and that he had suggested that
Corky, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this. The problem is you won't let nobody respond to anything. And I don't know how many times I have told you that the attorney did not come back to my office. I was in my office. Once that meeting was over, he came back and told me that he thought a deal had been worked out. And of course, it made me mad too, because I felt like it was behind closed doors and it should have been a public meeting.
What made me mad is because we don't agree with Betty, we don't get invited. The road commissioners, the big meeting with the state, the road commissioners don't get invited to that. We don't know about it until everybody in the council hears about how glorious she was with.
This was about when I went to Washington to try to ask for federal funding and stuff for the.
And you met with everybody out here, everybody from the state of Alabama and everybody out here at the site.
Wait, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, really.
Okay, and
Well,
you finish with your statement.
Sure.
Tell us much.
I've got a question again. Well, I've got a statement and a question. First of all, we continue to be on this line, or so at least some of us do, that we're here to get rid of somebody. We're here because we were requested that a position be changed, period, the end. There's no somebody's got a vendetta and other stuff. Somebody had requested a change. We did not vote. It doesn't matter. That's why we're here, or we wouldn't be here discussing, period. The second thing is that this chief that we had, that was brought in, that they talked to, We had a special call meeting 2 weeks ago on Wednesday night. We had the opportunity to vote on that night. We had 3 people that didn't show up.
And you know why? Because I've got a tumor on my head, and the mayor, we have never had a special meeting called before that she didn't contact to see if anybody had conflicts. I had conflicts. Ann Brown's having to sit with her, Ann Cowan's having to sit with her.
And I was at work.
And
We had conflicts, but she didn't ask anybody. This is the only meeting she's ever called, special meeting, that she didn't ask, could we come?
Well, because, basically, I thought
And
it
she,
was an
let me just tell you,
emergency.
she sat up here and grandstanded that night because she knew about 30 hours before that we weren't coming.
How was I grandstanding? We didn't
Because
have a
you went ahead and
meeting.
let everybody come. I got Scott to call Tony, let him know the thing wasn't gonna happen. And y'all got up here and said like you didn't know we wasn't gonna be
You
here.
didn't let anybody know anything about calling anybody. Nobody called me. And Scott didn't call. Did you call me and tell me we didn't?
I didn't talk to you. No.
Well, you sent me a message that gave me that sign to tell me that everything had been done. I mean, I could show it to you, Scott.
There again.
I don't disagree with that. I did not talk to him. I may have sent you that message, but I did not talk to him.
Well, I'm sorry then. I thought you were informed that I wasn't gonna be here. She knew I wasn't gonna be here.
No, I did not. You told me the day before that you didn't know if you were gonna be here or not. You know,
And then-
all 3 of you.
And then I got the impression you weren't gonna have a meeting, and then you called me in there. And another thing is, we're supposed to have a package for a meeting. This was tonight's package. You know what our package looked like for that meeting? There wasn't one. We didn't know what kind of ambush we were walking into. The attorney had already told us the day we had the meeting with the chiefs that a special meeting wasn't necessary. We didn't need it, and it could wait till the next meeting, which is be right now tonight. We still ain't got resolved.
The meeting was to interview the chief.
I'm talking about after that, when he came back from talking to you, he said that y'all had discussed a special meeting, or I understood for some reason he knew you were considering a special meeting, and he suggested that we didn't need to have a special meeting. And we didn't need to have a special meeting. Nothing was being achieved about it.
Generally, the mayor decides that when we have a special meeting, she calls.
Yeah.
And it's our job to
But
show up.
but
Or say we can't show up.
but out of common courtesy, you could ask.
Did you
like
show the courtesy of calling to say that you weren't gonna be at the
I
meeting?
did. I told you in that office.
You
Your
said you-
office
you
there.
said you wasn't sure that anybody was gonna
Tuesday,
show
you told
up.
me. And let me just tell you, I discussed with her that we didn't have paperwork for a meeting. And me and her went to Cassie, and we talked about in there, in her office, that we need to start getting paperwork sooner for these meetings as it comes in. Do you remember that, Cassie?
Yes, and there's usually a lot of paperwork for
I know,
each meeting,
but
and
that
I
was,
don't have time to do that.
that was 30 hours before the council meeting, and we had one subject of conversation, and we got, all we had
We're back to the
was,
police chief,
let me
please.
finish, that's what we're talking about. All we had, the reason we didn't show up, we had no clue what kind of ambush, we didn't have any time.
Courtney, you're out of order.
No, I'm not, this is about the floor.
We are not talking about paperwork and stuff. We are talking about a fire chief position.
And you expect us to make a decision on a fire chief decision, the biggest decision we've made since we've been in office, without any kind of clue what your position was going to be or what, I mean, we got, you know, a radio, we consider tonight, we had 17 pages of radio stuff. We had all kinds of stuff that, we had information on stuff here that we didn't need. But the biggest decision we've made since we've been on the council, we didn't need any paperwork for.
His
We
application
didn't
was
have-
here for you to look at if you would have liked to look at it.
That was another thing, we didn't have application, we didn't know if he's a child molester or what.
You already interviewed
Go
him.
talking to him, we've hired 4 city clerks since we've been in office. And that was our power, but Betty had input into every one of them. In fact, she's recommended every one of them.
We've only hired
And we-
one clerk since we've been in office.
The 3 little girls, we made 4 hires, whatever it is. The little girl, you remember who I'm talking about though. We've made multiple hires, if not 4 or 3. I believe Cassie was the 4th one. And it's been the mayor's suggestion every time, but we didn't get the courtesy of, and the guidebook, the book here says that generally it's generally considered that the council should narrow the number of applicants down to 3 or 4, and then the mayor picks from those. And there were supposedly 7 applicants, and we saw no applications until this guy had already been offered. And like I said, I wasn't against him. I told him we'd support him 100% if everybody else saw fit to do it. Do what?
Nothing. Okay, Tony, would you like to finish what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know.
But listen, none of that matters.
I don't know how you finish it out. First of all, we're not talking about the issue that we're talking about, period.
It all leads up to the issue we're talking about.
No, it all leads up to somebody came in and requested a change in their position, and we haven't agreed.
But the reason he asked for that was because she made the statement.
Okay, Corky, I'm tired of you pointing your finger at me. I'm gonna ask you to control yourself.
You can't have me removed. What are you gonna do?
And if you can't
I'm
control
elected
yourself
official
in
just like
this
you
meeting,
are. I don't.
I'm gonna ask you to step outside
I'm not
and control
stepping
yourself.
outside.
Can I have an officer let him go outside for a minute?
You can't remove an elected official. Tell him. If I threaten her with this, you'll have to carry me out.
You can walk outside and calm yourself and then come back into the meeting and conduct this meeting in a professional way.
I'm calm.
Okay, if you can control yourself, then that's fine.
But
Tony has the floor right now, if he can finish, please.
It all comes back to the same thing for me. We are talking about somebody requesting a change in position that has not been approved. How do we resolve that? This council has said we need a full-time fire chief. We don't have one. We tried to hire one. We couldn't get a vote on it. So all this stuff about vendettas and firing and getting rid of and all that, I don't know where it's coming from, because that's not the issue in any of this.
Chief Platts and I have talked at length about his position, that what he would like to do part-time. And I've told him that I will not interfere with that if with the new chief, any chief that comes in, that I will not interfere with it. It will be his decision if Chief Platt stays on. I cannot take the responsibility away from these chiefs because they are hired to do a job. If I go back there and start telling them in their department who they need to put in those positions and how they need to fill those positions, then I'm wrong. I feel like that they can't do their job because I'm back there interfering. I don't know what skills they need for particular jobs that they are, and the positions they're putting them in. So therefore, it is the chief's job, not mine, to do the hiring of their personnel back there. I've told that to Mike, and I've said that to on numerous occasions. So we're right back to square one. That position is right now considered full-time. Chief Platts just told us he cannot work full-time, that he would have to have a part-time position if he stays on here.
okay, fire him.
And if he wants to have a part-time position and the new chief has no objection, I have no objections to that.
The whole thing, you can put all the spoke springs you want to, but 3 of us have heard Betty say she didn't know she could work with you. That was the whole reason for this.
When I came in,
Let me finish. The whole thing, they say it's not about part-time or full-time. To start with, Mike Platts was our fire chief. And he was so proud and happy to be our fire chief, he couldn't stand it. He wasn't out looking for another job. He had a little part-time job at Pale City Fire Department, 3 days a month or whatever it was. And she comes to us and says she don't know if she can get along with the fire chief. That's her words, it ain't my words, it's her words. And you can ask the other members on council that can still remember it. And for all I know, they may not heard it. I don't know, but I don't see how they couldn't have as many times as she said it. Well, it all comes
you've
down
been told this a million times,
well,
Corky, and yes, I did
apparently
say.
it's not sinking into you, Betty.
I have said this over and over again. When I came in office, most of the time, it is the mayor's decision whether he keeps the personnel on board. I said I wanted to work with everyone here and see how it turned out. Everything was going fine. Chief Platts told me up front that he had another part-time job, but that he was not getting enough money here because he had to do better for his family. You can't fault him for wanting to better his family and everything. He asked me, he came in and told me one day that he had found a full-time job. I wished him well, and then he said, no, wait a minute, I still want to stay on in Argo, but I would like to have my position reclassified to a part-time position. I said, okay, then you need to take that to the council for their decision. And then that's when we came up here and we voted. There was a let's see, a 3 to start with, and Councilperson Brown changed her mind and said, let's give him 6 months trial to see how it works. Well, in 6 months, that 6 months trial period was over. A decision had to be made whether he was going to stay on part-time, or if we was going to keep that position part-time, or if we were going to go back to a full-time position. At that time, 3 voted yes to keep him on part-time, 3 voted no to go back to full-time. So it's my understanding that it's a full-time position now. Am I correct, Scott?
But at the same time, he said, you say it your side, but at the same time, he said, we've got a part-time chief. And until you fire him, we've got a part-time chief. And that's what you should have done when something she did skip, and we skipped, and we did make both the heads interims.
We didn't make anybody interim.
Well, whatever it is, a temporary, it's in the minutes that we were appointed, that it's in the minutes.
Nobody was hired under contract. It was basically as an at-will job that everybody still retained their position. Retained their position.
Minutes of our November 16 meeting where we installed the officers.
To the chief, or the chief?
The chief, that's all on the one sheet of the minutes of our organizational meeting in November of
We're still
last
right
year.
back
There's a
down to the
resolution, is
full-time
that what you're
position.
I understand, but I'm still telling you what I'm trying to get to the root, what the problem was to begin with. It wasn't the full-time chief. I keep saying we had a full-time chief. But what the state book says is, our department heads are supposed to serve the same terms as we do. Their job begins when ours does, ends when ours does, unless there's just cause for firing. What the book says, what we did was give her some time to do it, and it says it's in the organizational meeting you can appoint them temporarily until you appoint them permanently. Well, then you go down in the book, and it's my fault. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't study before we got. You go down about 3 or 4 paragraphs, and it says at the first regular meeting that you're supposed to finalize your appointments of officers.
Okay, would you
And then the state, let me finish, and then he can tell me where I'm wrong. I'm telling you everything I think is the truth and how it's supposed to be, and then he can tell me where I'm wrong. That's why we've got him here. But then in the book there too, it says that their terms start with ours and they end with ours, and then the new council has the right to either rehire them or to replace them. And that's what we should have done 15 months ago, is replaced him if Betty couldn't get along with him. That's what we should have done, and we let it drag out 15 months later. Now that's why we're at this way. We didn't do, as the state sees fit, we went off on our own. Either, not purposely define the state or anything, we're just normal people and we don't know any better, but we got to get it right now.
Okay, Scott, would you?
I'm not going to get into, trying to determine whether you're right or wrong. I don't want to do that. The issues before the council, the decisions, legal decisions that you need to make, is you have a part-time chief working for you, and he's been working, he's been paid, he's been doing a job. It's not a perfect situation, rehashing what I said a minute ago. It's governed by the statute that I handed out to you. That says all you need to know. If the city council wants to keep Chief Platts, you can reclassify him to the part-time position Councilman Massey was talking about, or you just let things ride just exactly like they are. No, it's not perfect, but it is riding that way, and that's what you're looking at. It's not, again, it's not a great situation, but that's what you're at.
I voted for a full-time chief.
Yeah, and that's if you want to keep that situation. If you wanted to fix that situation and clear the slate, obviously you have the right to terminate Mike Plass as chief, the city council. That would be it. do that tonight. You can keep them tonight, terminate tonight, whatever you want. Or the other option is for this, if in the event the mayor decided to make that decision, that statute that I handed out a minute ago, I said that's all you need to hear, says that in the event that the city, the mayor terminates for cause, that the council has to confirm that situation in a hearing. Now, so I've covered how to keep the situation, how to get rid of the situation. It has nothing to do with personalities. That's just the decisions that you have, the arrows that you have in your quiver. And I don't think that has, and what I'd like to do at this point is ask if anyone has a question about the few options that I've just gone over. Any questions? Any questions?
It's not about those options, but I'm still unclear on how we have filled a position that this city has not approved. We don't have a position for a part-time chief.
Well,
in every position, in my understanding, every position that someone is employed in this city has been created and approved by the council, our council or a previous council.
And I agree. And so, believe it or not, I don't disagree with what you just said. But there is nothing illegal about allowing him to stay on and paying his position. As a matter of fact, this hasn't happened per se. This hasn't happened exactly like I'm going to say it. I have to qualify that because I don't want somebody saying that I said this. But the mayor could, in a certain situation that has not occurred, could say, okay, in the interim, I appoint this person to take X position, whether it's the clerk or whether it's somebody else, but that has not occurred. My point in saying that is, that's not perfect either. So what you have is, it's not illegal what's happening. It's not, so it's not a violation of law. The situation is, you've got a full-time authorized position for fire chief. Ironically, because of the circumstances that's happened all the way till now, you've got a part-time person trying to fill those duties. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but that's what has happened because no action has been taken to change that situation directly. Now, again, going back to what I was saying, it ain't perfect. But those situations, to get rid of it, I've explained what you can have the arrows in your quiver, and to keep it, I've explained the arrows in your quiver. You've got those choices before you as a city council. And, you know, again, what I'd like to do is ask anyone if they have any questions about that, because I don't want any confusion about what I'm telling you.
What you're telling us then is, I'm asking, is to make it simpler for me and everybody else too. We've got a part-time chief working in the full-time thing, and that's a violation of the policy, as per se. And we've got to decide if it's a serious enough violation of the policy. If he don't show up for work for a month, that's a violation of policy too. And we have to terminate him, or if he got a good enough excuse, we keep him. Well, let me finish. What we're saying is, what you're telling us is until we fire him for not being a full-time chief, he's still our chief. We've got to take action to either the mayor has to fire him, or we have to vote to fire him, or he resigns. That's the options that you gave us.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody has to take action, whether it's the mayor or the council. If it's the mayor, then it comes back to council for confirmation based on the statute I've handed you.
And she has to have a majority to confirm it.
That's correct. Right. That's correct. Now,
and she doesn't get to vote, or it takes 2/3 to confirm it.
That's under 1143-160, not 1143-81. So the statute I've handed you allows the mayor to be part of that majority. However, it has to be confirmation of that action. Now, again, I want to make sure there are no questions from the city council. I don't want to leave any rock unturned. I don't want any gray area not discussed, because I don't want to leave the situation anymore without clear and concise legal advice. That's what I want to give it right now.
So anybody in any position at this city can come in and they can set their own hours, and until the mayor fires them and this council confirms it, nothing changes.
No,
That's our responsibility too.
no.
Okay, and that's the two things I just said is that someone fires them and then it has to come to the council for approval.
Yes.
So what's different?
If there's an official, and this gets into the weeds, but if there's an official, then that official may have those same rights. Now, this 114381 is the one I gave to you. It talks about certain people, certain officials. It doesn't talk about miscellaneous employee working for the city.
So anybody in that same classification, it's the same.
Official.
Right, an official. And again, there are other statutes dealing with appointments. I mean, there's case law that's been discussed by the Supreme Court of Alabama on this exact subject. This is not, I mean, I've explained it as concisely as a human can. This statute gives you all you need to know to make an informed decision on this subject. Yes, someone has to make a decision. Yes, that is correct. But about this particular classification of employee. Now, and those are based upon, again, repeating, those are based upon the fact that the history of this city, the city council has made appointments at every new, now, again, originally, it was my impression that this was not the case. But it's been confirmed to be the case that the city council has made those appointments at every beginning of every administration. I've seen at least 2 different examples of that. One at the very beginning, and one, I believe may have been, I forget which year. But nevertheless, based upon that fact, that's what gives me my comfort in that this section identifies the source of everything you need to know legally on the subject.
Can I ask you a question? All right, so this is what I'm hearing. If at the position we are in now, since the council cannot agree on making it a full-time position, well, it is a full-time position, but leaving Mike in a part-time position, then it either comes down to either Mike steps down or the mayor lets him go. Am I understanding that correctly or not?
Well, if the city council does not make a decision as a whole, yes. It all comes down to Mike Platt staying, or the only other option is the mayor making a decision. Somebody has to make a decision. If it's not Mike Platt's, it's got to be the city council. If it's not the city council, it's got to be the mayor, which ends up coming back to the city council for confirmation. It's really quite simple, even though.
So let's say if I was to go ahead and let Chief Platts go, then at the next meeting, he gets a hearing, and then at the next meeting, it comes back to the council to see if y'all want him to still stay on.
At that hearing, at the time of the hearing, you can discuss it, hear whatever for calls, issues there are, you confirm the mayor's decision or you don't. The city council can bypass all that and make a decision right.
So either way, it's going to be split.
And that's our problem.
We
If
need
there's,
a full-time chief, period.
I agree, we all agree to that, but at the same time,
Well, if you agree to that, then I think it's time to step up and vote that way.
I'm not going to vote to get rid of one without having an assurance that we're going to improve our fire department. That we're not going to make, like I said, this was a good man, and I told him I would support him and that I would vote to approve his, I would vote to approve his position.
This man has sort of withdrawn his name.
I know that, but
He
you
doesn't want
heard
to be
me say
considered.
too, you heard me say too, and Scott said that there may be some merit to it, that we could, and the thing with our attorney has told us that it's not gonna cost us any more for me to talk to him. He told me that it was okay to talk to him, that he's gonna stay within our budget, that it's not costing the city for me to talk to him. We had a deal ironed out, and we were doing it in good faith, and it was a perspective deal. The council had to approve it. I wasn't trying to step up for the council. He can tell you that. The whole deal was we can't get anything done sitting in the same room. I know he went that way. I was under the impression he was going to check with Betty, but he was going to apparently get the paper that she had already signed.
I had already handed that to Chief Platts.
Do what?
I had already handed that when Chief Platts came in that morning. When he came by the office,
But it wasn't in the room with us when we were discussing it. Scott went back there.
That doesn't make any difference anyway. Our decision now is to.
All it is everything goes to the wayside. If we can see our way clear to give Mike Platts the job for the grant, and that'll improve, pretty much anybody can come in here and we'll have a full-time chief. The full-time chief we had come in here was not a paramedic. He just wasn't as qualified as Mike. But we were giving him the same pay, and we were furnishing him a truck to go 50 miles out.
He had some degrees that Chief Platts didn't have. Chief Platts had some that he didn't
But they were in fire
have.
marshal law. They weren't.
Just anybody can come in here.
I'm sorry?
You just said that just anybody.
Well, anybody that's qualified, I'm saying that he don't have to have as many qualifications as Mike for us to have a better fire department. He brings qualifications, like she said. This guy had different qualifications, but he didn't have the same. That's something else. The public's not allowed to speak at these meetings. I love you to death, Michelle, but that's something we've done brought out. It's a public meeting, but it's not an open forum. And I used to violate it myself big time. I'm sorry. I know that.
I'm sorry, but I feel like it's the mayor's job to speak to me.
But I've got
Thank you.
full right now.
Thank you.
If she wants to open it for a public discussion, the book warns against it. I should have been looking at the book 15 months ago. It's my mistakes. I've made more mistakes than anybody, or as many as anybody, and I'll admit that.
Could we just get back to the point?
Well, I keep coming back to the point. Chief moves to grant position, mayor hires a new chief. She got the right, will from this day forward, give her the right to hire a fire chief. We don't know, it's like Scott said.
You can't speak for everybody.
Well, that's what I'm saying prospectively. When I say we, I mean upon approval of the council. Upon approval of the council. Everybody knows that. They know don't think I can run the whole place. You think
You're still
you can't
putting
run
a
it,
condition.
none of us run it at the council. We all have the same power.
Corky, here's my opinion. We had that opportunity. We didn't get to follow through on it.
What opportunity you're talking about now?
We had an opportunity to hire a new chief and to let that new chief decide where he wanted to keep Chief Platts on in that position or not.
That's right.
So I'm not sure what's holding us up. We had that opportunity 2 weeks ago. We didn't take that opportunity.
We still have the same opportunity.
No.
We can hire another. She had 7 applicants. We still have the same opportunity.
We actually had somebody that had been in the fire service since they got out of high school, that actually had a degree in it, and had actually had a master's also in business. Now, I'm not saying that.
Offering the job.
I'm not saying that we already did. He resigned. He pulled his consideration because we didn't show him last 2 weeks ago, because he was afraid that there was issues. Not saying that degree is any different than Mike. Mike's got qualifications as a paramedic, that's one thing. He's got qualifications over here, that's another thing. He's an inspector.
And that's what I'm saying is, between the two of them, if we've got them both, which is the best